We have to switch sets of slides, so just 1 second. But I will say, I'm sorry I don't match the decor today, but Buddy and I decided we would wear our mission trip clothes. And you know, you always have on some obnoxious color looking t-shirt so you can find each other in airport terminals and on the streets and everywhere. And so here we are. We wore these when we were there. These are not our newest ones, but these are our most obnoxious ones. So that's, we got it.
We were afraid we wouldn't find each other.
Well, we met Donald Klein, a pastor out of Charlotte in North Carolina, and he went with us. Donald is always our third partner in crime. Anywhere we go, he's always up for a trip. So he and Buddy were going to go by themselves. This is just a little aside and a plug for our missions minister back there and our missions weekend. Buddy and Donald said, we're ready to go. I said, I don't want to go until I can fly into Borisville. I don't want to go that border crossing and all that stuff. I want to just fly right in. And he said, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think Donald and I are going to go. And I said, you're not going by yourself. You need to wait a while. Both of them need adult supervision when they're away. So
true.
So I kept, praying, Lord, convict them. And, it didn't work. We came to the missions weekend, and I had my knees totally knocked out from under me. And God said, you're being in a haughty place. If I want you to go there, you'll go there. And I'll take care of you. And you don't need to sit here and wait till it's safe. So I said, okay, I'm ready to go. And I said, if we can go to England and see our translator and our in-country coordinator, Marina, you saw her sitting on the floor looking sad and happy in one of those slides. If we can go see Marina in England and spend a week with her and the children, and then we'll fly into Poland and we'll see if the border's still open. And, Lord, maybe you'll close it, but we won't have to go across. But he didn't. Everything was good. And so we went, and the Lord was with us, and you were with us.
Absolutely. We
could tell that you were praying for us all the time. We crossed into the border into Ukraine about 10 o'clock at night, and I was anxious almost all the way from Krakow there. I had never been in that area. I didn't know what the border crossing was going to be like. It was nothing. There were no cars there. The man who was taking us across, our friend, said, God blessed America, as soon as we drove up there, because there were no cars there. He said, I've never been here at the crossing when it was like this. And so I said, there are a lot of people praying for us. And Donald said, there are a lot of people praying for me. And he said, can I give you a list of when I need to go across from now on? And you can have all those prayer warriors praying for me. Because the very next day he went back to that same border crossing, and there were so many cars, he just decided to abort that one and drive on to another one. So it was totally your prayers and your support there. And we thank you. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for all those prayers, all the financial support that the different Connect groups and individuals have given, and that the church has just said that, okay, we're going to trust Ukraine Challenge to spend that money wisely, and we have every penny of it. It's gone for humanitarian aid. It's gone for fuel to carry that humanitarian aid. It's gone for generators and houses, and you'll see a little bit more of that today. So this is the message from our friends too. Thank you. Thank your church. Thank your government. Thank you for standing with us. And then one of our pastor friends said, be sure and tell them We are so thankful for Patriot missiles. And you will hear his the interpretation of his introduction when we were in the church on that Sunday, and how much Patriot missiles means to him. Everyone is trying to live a really normal life. They're trying to go on, but it's really hard when you don't sleep because of air raid sirens, and you don't sleep because of strikes, and you have to get up and go to work the next morning anyway, or you have to care for your children, or plant your garden, or whatever you need to do. But they're trying to just be strong. We met no one who was hiding their head in the sand or not going about in a normal way. In the 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks that we were gone, we listened to more than 80 people's stories. So Buddy is actually right. If we tried to tell you all of those, we would be here, because they're all heart-wrenching, they're all full of emotion. And we were there, being present in each moment and listening to our friends, to new friends, and sometimes just to strangers who wanted to say, "Oh, you're from America. Let me tell you about this." So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of trying to cover the waterfront, I want to just tell you about one village, one church, one family, and how the war has changed them, how it has called them into action, and to just experience it through their eyes, and then the future. So this village is an example of all that it's good. You see its name there? It has way too many consonants before there's a vowel. So we first went there in 1995, and for days we practiced z, d, v, zdv, zdvish, and z, and get hung up. But finally, we learned to say zdvishka. And so I want to tell you about that village. It's an example of all that's good and resilient, and as a Ukrainian village, and the atrocities that were committed there, and all the Russian aggression and onslaught. So welcome to Zdvishivka. This is the gate going into the church, and this is a normal scene. Zdvishivka is in the first safe zone from Chernobyl. What does that mean, a safe zone outside of Chernobyl? Yeah, that's what it means. And it's a Chernobyl relocation village. So all those people that lived right there at Chernobyl, they moved about 1,500 of them to this little village of about 1,500, and so they doubled the size of it overnight. And it was from that village that Russia shot their first missiles into Kiev and Bucha and Irpin. It was from that village that they destroyed the Antonov, the world's largest cargo plane, and the base that housed it. And Russia occupied that village for more than a month, and when they were not successful there, they moved on to Bucha and Irpin. Those names you saw in the news a lot, where the total devastation and so many deaths were. So I want to just back up for people who don't really know us and give you a timeline. August 24th, 1991, Ukraine declared its independence from the Soviet Union. It stretched from Lviv in the west to Lugansk in the east, and it included the Crimean Peninsula. Did we lose our map? Okay. If Buddy Wolf finds the map later, we'll back up. If not, you've seen enough maps that you know. So this was August 24th. Here's an example of God's sense of humor and attention to detail. Buddy and I shared the same birthday. That's a funny thing anyway. So when is our birthday? August 24th, the same as Ukraine's independence. In 1993, North Carolina Baptist men formed an IMB partnership with the Ukrainian Baptist Union. IMB assigned a journeyman, that young man that you see in the corner picture, a journeyman to Ukraine who started receiving volunteer teams before there was even a career missionary there. That journeyman became like a third son to us and eventually became a career missionary, and he and his wife visited us during COVID and visited out at Barcelona Road, and they hosted us on Thursday night and made the plan for us to get back into Poland in a humanitarian aid van that was empty, and then gifts that you gave us filled it up, and they brought it back into Ukraine. So Labor Day weekend of 1994, do you see that young buddy in Janada right there?
It's the same as us.
Yeah. Labor Day weekend of 1994, we made our first trip to Ukraine on, are you ready for it, a construction team to work at the Kyiv Baptist Theological Seminary. So North Carolina Baptist men had bought a Soviet Union officer's bathhouse, and they were turning that into a seminary. So during those 2 weeks, God put all the puzzle pieces together. He put them all on the table. He brought all the people that would be important to us from that point to today in Ukraine. So we needed only to add the corner piece. And you know what that is, obedience. He said, here it all is, just say you will. So in 1994, you see the man who looked with the Cossack mustache. 1994 through 1998, all the volunteers who came into Ukraine through North Carolina rode in a bright red new Volkswagen van by Nikolai Nikolaevich Nikolenko, or Kola for short. But that he told us at first his name was Nick. Sometimes his wife Valentina, or Vala for short, would prepare meals for the teams in their one-bedroom apartment in Kyiv, where they lived with their 3 children. You see them in that picture too. Near the end of the partnership, North Carolina bought them a house in Irpin. And there it is on a beautiful winter Christmas time when we were there, and it was just so breathtaking to drive up and see that house. They designated one room as our room. We were kind of like Elijah, and the widow. And we had one room, and we spent every summer there from 1998 to 2014. On Wednesday afternoon of that 1994 trip, we visited one of the new Baptist churches under construction. We drove out of Kyiv using that same highway that Russia tried to use to enter Kyiv. When we got to the Irpin River, we crossed on a low wooden bridge. A new modern bridge was being built to the side. When we got to the Irpin River on this trip, we crossed on a low wooden bridge. The Ukrainian army blew that good bridge up so that the Russians could not go in. You saw that picture many times too. People hiding under the bridge. Okay, that was right there at the Irpin River. The Ukrainian army blew it up, and just, to stop them dead in their tracks. They tried to go, but they couldn't do it. When they were not successful there, they just backed up, went out into the forest, and just drove around trying to find another way to go across, and just started blowing up things just right and left, and into several small villages. We visited this area with one of our ministry partners who is helping people who lost everything to receive temporary housing. We've shown that video in our worship service, where one of the first ones that our church bought was delivered. So we visited with these 2 couples who have received housing. The younger couple without us in the picture is Victor and Maya. They have 3 boys, so they're not going to fit into that little temporary housing very long. They're repairing their house too, and we've provided some materials for them. The couple where we are, that's Kola also, and Irina, and their house was totally destroyed. They barely got away. When they came back, her pots and pans were melted running out the door. She saved them all in a bucket. On that afternoon in 1994, so let's back there again, we took a detour to Zdvishivka and stopped under a tree on some land in between the old village and the relocation village. There was just kind of like a no man's land in there. And we stopped right there, and we all got out of the van, our team from that first slide, and one of the people held up a cinder block, and we prayed right there that there would be a church born in that village, and it would be built on that land right there. In May of 1995, we returned to Ukraine to spend the rest of the year there. Kola was still the driver for the partnership, and now also the pastor of several women and a few men and all the children in the village. The foundation was done and the walls were going up, but the church was meeting in Sister Luba's house. You see the ladies there. They're bringing the bread of friendship to one of the volunteer teams that came late in the fall that year to actually put the trusses on the roof. Sister Luba is the lady in the tan raincoat or long coat standing by the fence post. Luba is a short form for Lubov, which means love. Sister Luba is love, and she allowed the church to meet in her home until the building was done. She didn't consider herself to be important. I could never find another picture that she was in, even though I've made a lot of pictures of a lot of old ladies and people gathered. I could never find another one because she just wasn't important. She was always in the background, but she was a pillar of the church, and she still is. The building was finally finished and dedicated in the summer of 2001. Isn't it beautiful? Can you not imagine? So that area is flat as East Arkansas, and you're coming down the highway where the Russians came, and you see over here all these little relocation villages, all little houses like little mill houses. That's right in the middle, and then there's the old village. It's amazing, that red roof and that steeple that has a bell from the North Carolina mountains. So that's a story for another day. So other progress happened. Not long after that, they built a second building to house volunteer teams and anybody who needed a place to live. There was a kitchen in the front corner and 2 bathrooms and 2 showers paid for by a man from North Carolina who loved that village and went there many times with construction teams and camp teams. He loved the children there. Displaced people from the east lived there in 2014 to the present. And on the other side of the church, Kola and Vala built a house with many rooms for orphans and at-risk children. They're in their 60s, but they love children, and they're on their 4th set of children that they are raising. This time, 5 brothers and sisters, 1 with special needs. Kola is a wonderful musician and has traveled many places outside of Ukraine, doing concerts. He's been in Siberia, in different parts of Europe, and many Americans and other internationals have visited that village. I want you to just hold on to that fact till I get to the next point. Fast forward to February 24th, 2022. The long line of Russian tanks and troop trucks came into Ukraine down the highway outside Zdvishivka. An advanced detachment came into the village and went to the church. A man and his elderly mother had taken refuge in the basement. The officer in charge came to the church asking for the pastor. The man refused any knowledge, but the officer asked for his phone. The officer already knew Cola's name, and there were several calls between the man guarding the church and Cola. So it was pointless to do anything but hand the phone over. The officer called Cola. Can you imagine this? This just blew my mind. The officer called Cola directly and said, "I want to bring officers to stay in that house by the church. And I want to use the other building as a field hospital. In exchange, I will not harm the church." The audacity is amazing. By this time, Cola and his family and the children from the children's home were on their way to Mukachevo in the west. And he said, "Okay." The invaders cut off the electricity and gas to the village, and communication possibilities were pretty much blocked. Most people here use wells, so there was always water, but to get it, you had to go out of your house and into the yard. And they had been told that if they got out, they would risk being shot. What they ate was whatever they had in their homes when the invaders came, or whatever they had in their root cellars. One lady we know who is a nurse, and a pretty hefty little lady. We saw a picture of her after they came out from occupation, and I didn't even recognize her. She had lost so much weight. We have since learned that the man who was in charge here was Chaiko. If you follow the news, he is that officer who commanded the brutal attacks in Syria and then later on in Bucha and Irpin. Not too many people, especially the older people, left this village because everything happened so quickly. As the Russians, I've already said, as they occupied the village, they lined up the tanks in front of the church and shot toward Kiev, Irpin, and Bucha. And remember that fact about Kola being well-traveled and having a lot of international friends? They were, our friends, Kola and his wife, were told from people in the village that the Russians went house to house looking for him. And what did they call him? A NATO spy. Where is that man that is the NATO spy? Who? The pastor. Sister Luba, who is now 86, was hiding in her house behind the blue fence around the corner from the church, which is now the Russian base, and her young adult grandson was with her. And you know, as grandsons are, he was getting really bored, and he saw all of the atrocities going on around the church and up and down the street. And so he sneaked out where he could find a little sweet spot of cell phone power and started to take videos and photos and sent them out. When she saw what he was doing, it was like, flight instinct took over, and even at 86, she grabbed her grandson and they ran to the safety of the summer kitchen. About the time they got inside, a missile hit her house and burned it up. When she was in the summer kitchen and watching that, she thought, my Bible is there. I have to have my Bible. And so she ran into the fire and retrieved her Bible and went back to the summer kitchen. We don't know the details of how long they hid there or what happened when they went to safety. But after more than a month of occupation, the Russians left, taking everything from the children's home. Furniture, washer, dryer, computer, TV, children's clothes, dishes, air conditioner, commodes, sinks, and faucets. Later, when the pastor's daughter, Vera, wanted to start Sunday school again, she went to the closet where she had kept years of craft materials and books and Bibles. There was not even a pencil left behind. She sent a message to us and said, "Buddy, can we buy some stuff to start again?" And we said, of course. Vera in Ukrainian means faith. Even though the buildings were emptied and so things were stolen, they were not destroyed. They were not destroyed. The story was told in the village that the lesser officer in charge there received the order to destroy them all, to get rid of any evidence of atrocities. But that was the man who had made the agreement with Kola, and he wouldn't do it. And he was stripped of his rank and sent to the hot front. The congregation is meeting again in that building. They have arranged for tons of food and other humanitarian aid to be brought to the church, where they package it and send it out to wherever it's needed. Ukraine Challenge has provided funds to pay the fuel costs to bring it from the border to Zdvishivka and then on to wherever the need is. And that's pretty much everywhere, from kind of the middle of the country to the eastern border. Vera met us at the train station as we left to receive some funds for another 20 tons of food. She has gotten calls from everywhere in the East, people expressing gratitude for the first real food they've eaten in a long time. We visited with the Nikolenko family at their home in Irpin on Monday of our trip. To get there, our host son now took us to the metro station on the left bank, and we crossed underground to the right bank, and Kola picked us up. As soon as we got on the highway, we began to see signs of war that we had not seen so much up to that point. Piles of burned, twisted metal from buildings, cars and tanks, and the remains of gutted buildings. But it's like tornado damage, not everybody was hit, so some are really bad and some are not so bad. As we left the main highway into Irpin, there was more damage, and as we turned into the street where our friends live, the house next to them was gone, hit by a phosphorus bomb that burned so hot, so fast, that the Nikolenko's roof was totally damaged and all the windows blown out. But the fence, weirdest thing, the fence between the two houses was not burned at all. The fence toward the street was full of bullet holes. Their house is full of bullet holes. You can see there where he has sprayed that fast, foam stuff to fill them up. And the living room is full of bullet holes. The kitchen and eating area have been repaired and repainted, but the rest of the house is a reminder every day of what happened. It will take lots of time. After a lot of hugs and tears, we sat at the table for lunch and listened to their stories. Stories of Kola, Vera, and Daniel's wife, Zoya, making the first trip back after occupation, walking from the checkpoint at the edge of town, finding unexploded bombs in their yard and another unexploded bomb in the shower stall in Daniel and Zoya's house. Trying to find something to cover the windows, walking carefully to avoid landmines, checking on people and property, and trying to keep it together because death and destruction were all around. And the scariest of all, they were warned that there might still be Russian soldiers hiding in different places. As we continued to sit at the table, there were more of these stories, but also expressions of gratitude for life and help just at the right time, and miracles and plans. During a pause, Vanya said, "Do you remember Sister Luba?" Who could forget Sister Luba, really? And we heard that story from the beginning and the ending now. So Luba had been taken like an orphan by the government to a temporary shelter where they took other women who had lost everything, and she was just sharing a room with a lot of strangers in her situation. She was sad. She had never lived anywhere else, and she wanted to return. Valya said, "We've been trying to collect old bricks and cinder blocks and wood from broken places to see if we can build her a little house. this is like using what you have to get it done, right? So then she said, "Buddy, can you help?" And so we started to tell her about our ministry partner and the Modular Homes Project. Buddy said, "I know that he has funds from Ukraine Challenge for one more house." So we, through the magic of cell phones, we exchanged his contact information, Cola's contact information. But at that moment, the man who's doing the houses was on his way to the flooded area of the Kherson region, taking pumps and other equipment to pump the water and mud out of those houses. So it would be a few days before he got back. So they asked, of course, how long will it take? 2 or 3 months? And so we called Olis, and he said, "No, I think I can do it in about 10 days. So watch this video.
Today we brought one more mobile house, and we will install in Zdvizhivka. Our sister. Here is the pastor and guys who installed the house. We're working, but soon I will be available to live here.
So that's Sister Luba, and she's praying. She's praying about returning home. And that was Kola. He's made quite a transformation from the days of the Cossack mustache.
Our sister Maria.
He's calling her Maria, but it's really Luba.
There is the pastor, and she already prayed, give thanks for God and people who bless her. Is this temporary house? She look happy and with hope to live again in this land. Thank you everybody who donate and pray and bless. It's very important for people who lost their houses. Praise God.
So now Vera's going to tell quietly. She's talking about getting her Bible out of the fire. So now they're starting to bring in cabinets and a bed and a mattress. It's like a quick IKEA project, and then they're bringing the cabinets in. There's room. There's a bed. There's a bedroom. Here we are. There will be a little dresser there, and then she can bring in her own chairs and things. It has good windows. Everything is new and nice. Here's the kitchen. They work very quickly. These men have done this in more than 200 houses now. She can't believe it. It's very important for people who have land and who live in the village to be at home on their land, behind their fence. Oh. So in that space, there will be a little refrigerator. There will be a sink. They've already made arrangements to get a pump and connect it. I think she is already there, even though electricity is not all done. Days are long in Ukraine, nights are short. Doesn't matter if you have lights or not, if you're sleeping in your own bed now, on your own land, by your flowers and your garden. And it's been a long time since she's been there. This is going down that road where the tanks were, and that was a lake where Buddy has baptized many times in the summer. Life continues in Ukraine. Vera is planning a children's day camp in this village, kind of like a day-long Bible school. Many other churches are doing the same. On this past Sunday afternoon, Buddy prepared a list to send to our accountant to provide funds for 16 camps, and we had already given others some as well, so the children are going to be engaged and taught the Bible this summer. Our friend who helped us across the border, his nonprofit is going to hold 40 Rattlebot Club camps, which they use Legos and robotics and Bible stories and Christian counseling to reclaim those children that are really at risk. Life continues, but the war continues. This past Sunday, here's all the group, the 5 children, and Kola and Vala's 2 grandchildren, and then an young adult girl from the past group that they raised, who comes in and out from time to time. All of them got up. All of these people who live at 50 Bogdan Hmelnitsky Street, they got up and dressed for church. They walked from upstairs through that living room full of bullet holes. They went out the door. They drove past bombed out buildings and those that were spared. Then into the countryside of green fields and damaged forests. They might have heard air raid sirens on the way. They hear them often. They worshiped in their church in that white building called Pure Heart Church, spared because of the integrity of a Russian soldier. Sister Luba was in her place. Every person we visited had a story of miraculous survival, but also incredible loss. And every pastor and every church we visited with had a program that they had developed to meet the needs in their area and share the gospel. It was God's window of time for us to say in words and hugs, "You are not alone." It was a time for us to experience their incredible courage and strength. On the last Sunday that we were there, our host pastor now did this really long introduction. And there are some things about us, but mostly he is giving his thank you to the American people. And we ask our translator to translate it for us. And so she speaks clearly. She starts kind of slowly, but I would like for you to listen to her voice.
Hi, you asked me to interpret Sasha's words at the service. So he was saying about our nations. So in behalf of Ukrainian nation, I would love to give thanks to American nation for all help and support that you give us, and we honor that, and we respect that, and we value that. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for us, and especially important and dear were words of one of your leaders who said that we will stand with Ukraine as long as it will be necessary. So it reminded me about you right away, because you know, a lot of people, maybe hundreds of people were coming from United States to Ukraine, but they would come once, twice, maybe a few times, but that's all. But not that many people who will do that as long as it's necessary. And you do that. And I know that you will keep doing that till the last breath. And it's so dear for us, and we are so grateful for you are. And we as a nation, we will do our best. Do not forget about all help that Americans done for us. And one day there were 5 missiles, like ultrasound missiles, that were called like unshootable, and American system, air defense system Patriot, shot them all in the air. First time in history. No one even knew Patriot can do that. And I fell on my knees right away and started to cry and pray, because 10 missiles. Can you imagine how many people could be dead because of that? But because we got this support, those systems that helps to defend our air space, so many lives were saved. So thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for your hearts, all the nation, and especially you, Buddy and Janada, who we know that will stay with Ukraine till the end of your life, because you know how much things need to be done yet. So thank you. Something like that.
Something like that.
She was translating from the live stream, so she was having to listen and translate, so she's pretty incredible.
So he's introduced me hundreds of times, really, at various services and occasions. And it's usually something funny, because he's known me so long, since 1994. And we've had lots of times together. And I can always tell when he starts an introduction, just be prepared, because he's going to waste me somewhere within this. The senior pastor, this old man pastor from America, or, just something, he's going to waste me. But on this Sunday, I could tell he wasn't going there. I didn't know what he was saying, but I knew he wasn't going there. And I'm so grateful that there was no translator there at the time, because it would not have been possible for me to preach after that introduction. This is one story. If you want to hear the other 79, we're available. If you have any questions or any thoughts, comments you'd like to share before we turn this back over for the drawing. Yes, sir.
Does anyone understand why Russia did what they did in the first place? What was their motive for attacking Ukraine?
There is this crazy man called Putin, whose desire has been, since he assumed some kind of authority in Russia, to pull the Soviet Union back together, all these countries that are now individual countries, pull them all back together into the Soviet Union kind of system. And Ukraine was just one of those that he's trying to do, and probably the largest one that he's trying to
And the most valuable. I mean, Ukraine, when we were all in 6th grade studying world geography, Ukraine is the breadbasket of the Soviet Union. It's the breadbasket of the Soviet Union. It's also it was the heart and soul of the Soviet Union. If you look at people who did all of the things that the Soviet Union are known for, historical things like the first cosmonaut and even Tchaikovsky and all of those, they came from Ukraine. Ukrainians are very literate, very creative, and they have that wonderful black soul, the soul that Hitler took by dump truckloads into Germany.
train car loads.
Yeah, so it is a valuable piece of the Soviet Union that they lost.
Yes, ma'am.
From the beginning of the war, we would see things on TV like the women and the children running to the trains to go to Poland. What's happened with them?
They've all run to the border in Poland and Romania and Hungary. Not all, but most of them are gone. The big rush is over. I mean, the war is now into the 16th month, so they're all gone. But there are still occasionally people that are crossing the border to escape, particularly from the
But some have come
eastern.
back.
Yes, many have come back.
Some have come back in these lulls, and one of the greatest tragedies is that some of them are not coming back. You know, our pastor friends told us that there are so many divorces coming out of this, and you know, the wives just will not come back and start over, or they've lost their husbands in the war. I mean, so many dead soldiers, so many soldiers with so many injuries. So that is a really cruel but true picture of what has happened too.
Where will they get the money to rebuild? Where will Ukraine ever be able to rebuild and build the cities?
Good question.
That is a really good question, and ask it again in about 10 years. No, seriously, there are several things that are being asked now of other countries. My history fades me here just a little bit, of the Marshall Plan or something like that after World War II. They're hoping to be able to institute those kinds of things. Also, there are a number of the Russian, what's the word? The rich people there in Russia. Oligarchs. Russian oligarchs whose boats and other things were confiscated. That the government, other governments around Ukraine are asking to be able to sell those and give the money to Ukraine for restoration.
There was a big economic meeting just this past week where different, you know, like, okay, it's not just heads of government who are promising things, but individual corporations and everything who are pledging funds, who are pledging to take their economy, their product into Ukraine and help to revitalize the economy. Ukrainians are really hard workers, so if someone will go in and give them a job, they'll make it work.
Yes, ma'am. No, not really. We'd like to think that it was in sight, but and we're seeing in the news some progress, but it's a long way to go. I've been given the signal, so I'm going to turn the. Here's Mikey. Come on down. Thank you so much for being here today.